My friends, welcome to the 7 p.m. May 2019 live UGS webcast. We did two earlier today at noon and then one at 4 p.m. So some of you are repeat folks, and so welcome back. For those of you that just got off work and are here, or it's early in the morning, I see Captain Dan in Russia. It's 11 a.m. on Tuesday. So welcome all. John Buthan, is that how you say that? Ted, Kelly, Y Cowboy, Roger, Daphne, David, Captain Dan, David, Mackie, E-Guitar, Ron, Dennis. Oh, there's a lot of you in here. Jason, 53 of us to start. It'll get bigger. We'll have a lot of great questions today. So this is how it works, my friends, is that this is an opportunity to really get your questions answered in real time. We've got all the videos, we've got the PDFs, we've got the jam tracks with the community and all the rest, but this, and the comments that I answer, but here, it's like we can really drill down, and so any questions that you have, my friends, I know that you have them. Really dig, okay, and be thinking, what's frustrating you about the guitar? Sometimes I find asking the right questions sometimes is hard. I'll say, well, why am I not this? Or why am I this? Sometimes it takes a little while for me to come up with the question. It's good for us to train ourselves and ask, why this? So don't be afraid. There's no stupid questions. In fact, chances are if you're asking the question, there's somebody else who's wanting to ask the same thing. They're just too embarrassed to say so. Okay, so definitely ask those questions. I'm here to help you. This is what this is all about. Okay, you've got 4 ways that you can sign in: Facebook and Twitter. I think I will see your name, and chat roll. You can do that as well if you don't like Facebook and Twitter, like a lot of folks don't. And lastly, you can log in as a guest, which will just show a number, of course, because you're trying to remain anonymous. So that's that whole point. So I'm not going to see your name there. So any way you want to do it will be great, but then this way I can address you even if it's by number. Okay, so hey Della, how you doing? Joe, Matthew. Hello, hello. All right, and we got to all the questions that were within the program. So now, friends, it's just literally getting to your questions. In fact, I'm going to check here real quick, but let me have it. I'm going to check really quick, make sure no one added another question. No, that was it. So literally just the chat that we're working on here is all we're going to be getting questions from today. So Joe's saying, I've never experimented with alternate tuning, but recently attended a guitar workshop where they were using drop D tuning. Any insights on the advantage of drop D? Yeah, so when you're doing alternate tunings, really what you're doing is changing from standard tuning, which is really a great tuning, arguably the best tuning because you can do so much with it. You can play in all different keys and it doesn't lend itself to just one specific key. You can play in all keys, right? Especially with using your capo then. But when you do things like drop D or double drop D, that sort of thing, what you typically are doing, or dadgad, is that you're having a lot of notes in a specific key when you strum the open chords or the open strings. And so that lends itself to a specific key usually. We go to drop D, and the way that I do that is I play my D string and my low E, and I just get them to sound both like a D, okay, just using your ear. So, like, you guys probably heard me play this one before. It's one of my favorite little finger picking bits. Right, that one, which is Never Going Back Again by Fleetwood Mac or Lindsey Buckingham. I think it's just him. So that is great because it lends itself, even though it's capoed, we've got this great little sound here. Technically if we were doing this open, it would be in the key of D. And it just really lends itself to being in the key of D. Another one would be Everlong by the Foo Fighters. And this really lends itself, again, to that open D sound, because that's what it's in the key of D. And there's certain things that you can't do unless you change the key. Okay? And another example would be Eleanor Rigby, my interpretation of it. Really rusty right now, but you get the idea there. And what I did for this one is really standard tuning except for the G. The G I bring up to a G sharp. Is that right? Hold on. I'm sorry, the B. The B I bring up to a C. Because for my melody to work here where I'm playing a harmony, I needed that droney, I needed that C to drone, but then I needed to play the melody up top. And if I didn't do that, then I would have to go, the fingering would be crazy. It'd be like, I need to grab this note, so it would be like, it would just be crazy. It wouldn't be doable. So when I was coming up with a guitar part for this, finger picking guitar part, when I was arranging this, I kept running into this problem where I'm like, gosh, I want that note to be this, but it's not. And then I just was like, well, let me tune it up a half step. And I did it, and then everything fell into place. Now I had to change my melody up a little bit. So normally that's the way I'd have to play that, but it was actually better even having that note up there. So sometimes, this has only happened to me once or twice maybe in my life where I was like, gosh, if that tuning was slightly different, it would make things easier. And then that's when I changed the tuning. So, and you'll find that with your own thing. So, there's an advantage to it when there is an advantage to it. Otherwise, there's not really an advantage to it. Does that make sense? It's like just putting your guitar in that tuning doesn't really give you an advantage per se. If you're doing drop D, it can be somewhat advantageous if you're playing a song in the key of D or D minor, because now you have that low note down there. But you don't have to. There's lots of songs that I have that are in D that never do that. It's just really a matter of preference, okay? All right, that's a great question, though. Okay, moving pentatonic scale up a few frets and playing the same scale changes from major to minor, right? Aeolian mode. One would imagine a different amount would go from Ionian to all others, right? Ted, I'm sorry, but I don't know what that means, the way you phrase that. Pentatonic scale, moving up a few frets and playing same skill changes from major to minor, right? I don't know what that means. If you could phrase that a little bit differently, that would be great. Okay, Daphne's out, Daphne's in. What up, Daphne? All right. I just put my guitar in drop D yesterday for the first time. My inspiration exploded. Now, Ted, yes, that's a great thing to do it for that reason, because it will inspire you to do other things. In fact, I have a lesson on Black Water by the Doobie Brothers. You can find that on YouTube. Just search Your Guitar Sage Doobie, Doobie, or Blackwater, or double drop D. It's called double drop D because this is dropped to a D and the high E string is dropped to a D. And it just allows you to play things that you normally might not play in. So exactly what Ted's talking about here, my inspiration exploded, you might find the same thing, because it just puts, especially if you've been sitting with standard tuning for a long time and you're just kind of bored with it, when you change your tuning of your guitar, all of a sudden things aren't where they used to be, and now it forces you to think differently. Just like I talk about with the 365 system, it's like you're getting outside your comfort zone, and usually all the best stuff that you want in life's outside your comfort zone. It's not where you're, it's not in your comfort zone, okay? After chemo, I've noticed that my hands are not as strong as they used to be. Any exercises away from the guitar that would help me? And yes, I'm cancer-free. Woo! With a new lease on life. I love that so much, Luana. Thus the reason for learning so aggressively. I love that. Luana, yes, get yourself some silly putty. Either buy several of them, or like at the dollar store, sometimes toy stores, you can find something called Big Putty. You probably find it on Amazon, I'm sure. Big Putty, B-I-G, putty. just more silly putty, and just exercising that is very helpful. So like if you're sitting in an office, or you're sitting on the phone or something and you want to exercise that hand, you don't have a guitar around, that's a great thing to do. You could also just do that, but that's not as fun as squeezing a piece of foam or a stress ball or putty or something like that. Some people will put their hand in a bucket of rice, because you have a bucket of rice sitting on your desk all the time, so that's perfectly convenient. There's different ways to do it, but just as long as you are creating tension, right, or you are exercising those muscles. You can also get a grip master. You could also just use your capo if it is a spring-loaded one like this. So in this case here, I might just pinch, with the different fingers. Now it's not as steady, but you could do it, and this one not as much as some of my other ones. This one's probably better. That one's kind of wonky there, but if I just take another capo, and I'm especially fingers 3 and 4, those are the ones that need the most help because they're so far away from the thumb. So they don't get nearly as much exercise as fingers 1 and 2 do. 3 and 4, not as much. So you want to exercise them with something. And when you do it, then when you go to the guitar, you'll be surprised at how it feels like you might have practiced, okay? 94 folks in here. Beautiful. Okay. Dennis is saying, Eric, I'm an advanced beginner learning electric. I want to learn about the various sounds the guitar makes. Should I start with separate pedals or a digital effects pedal like a Zoom G14? Dennis, my suggestion would be to start with a pedal like the Zoom G14 or some sort of multi-processor guitar pedal. And the reason for that is it's a great education to find out what it is that you like and what it is that you don't like. For instance, I have a Line 6 M5 pedal, and that guitar costs about $120, and it has probably 120 effects in it, or a lot of effects in it. It's got overdrives, delays, reverbs, also known as reverb. It's got distortions, fuzz, EQ, boost, modulation, flangers, choruses. I mean, just you name it, it probably has it in there. And you can only use one effect at a time unless you're doing the M9 or the M13, which are moving up to the higher models. I've had those too, but have sold them. And not for any specific reason other than I just didn't need them anymore. But why those all-in-one effects are great is because it will give you a great education on effects without breaking the bank. If you were to buy all those separate pedals that come in that one, I think it's the M5. It's in my store. It's in the Kit store. If you want to check it out, go to kit.com/yourguitarsage. Kit.com/yourguitarsage. And that is a fantastic pedal because if you were to buy each one of those effects separately, it would cost you, I don't know, $10,000. I mean, let's do this. Let's just do basic math. If we just spent $100 on each one of those pedals, and there's only 100 pedals in there, which there's a lot more than that, but only 100 effects, at $100 a piece, which is cheap for a pedal, you got $10,000 right there. So you buy one of those pedals, you have everything available to you. You can only use one at a time, but you can scroll through them and go, oh, I like that. No, I don't like that. And then you can go out and buy individual pedals so that you can do more with it, or you can ramp up to their M9 or their M13 pedal, which allows you to use multiple effects at once and still be able to pull any effects that you want on each one of the pedals. The Zoom G1 Zoom makes some great stuff. I think that's what I have. Oh no, this is. Yeah, that's something different. But yeah, Zoom makes great stuff. They make really good stuff. A lot for the money, I should say. So that's the reason why you would want to do that. Why you wouldn't want to do that is you can only do, maybe one or a few effects at a time. But typically you're not going to be using more than 2-3 effects anyhow at a time. Like you might use some delay, maybe some reverb, maybe some overdrive or something like that. But typically you don't do more than that at a time, three or so more. Okay, Why Cowboy is saying, I have been through all the lessons in the beginner section. I am reasonably comfortable with theory. However, I feel I am at a brick wall and can't seem to do anything from here. I am just lost. Why? I would need more information from you, Why Cowboy. But my guess would be is that I don't have any direction in your question. Like, you've done the beginner section, you're comfortable with theory. What are you trying to do that you're lost? Like, you're going to have to let me know what it is you're trying to do, because it's probably, remember, anytime you're feeling frustration, especially when learning guitar, typically means that you're asking too much of yourself without practicing. Okay, a lot of people go, I really demand a lot of myself. Let's not let your ego talk for yourself, okay? If you ask a lot of yourself, that means you get up and you do the work. Expecting a lot of yourself is not a big deal. I can say tomorrow, I want to be, a world leader. Not that I want that, but I could say that. And how hard is that to do it? There's no commitment. There's no anything there, right? But if I say, I really want to be a world leader and I'm going to do everything that I can to lead people and to do the best at my ability, and I'm going to make this my lifelong my lifelong goal, then that's a totally different way of saying it. So my guess would be that you're asking too much of yourself without having to put the practice in or the pieces in. And I'm not saying you're lazy. I'm just saying that it just is what it is. Everybody runs into this. The other thing is, I think that maybe you've got beyond the beginner section now and you're good. Now maybe you're jumping around too much and you're not doing things in order like I talk about in that beginner video or in the welcome video. So Why Cowboy, if you can give me more specifics, I might be able to help you more than what I did just there, unless that did help you enough, okay? David Makey is saying, I'm practicing bar chords and have a hard time with my index finger muting the strings. Everybody has that. My question is, do you press all the strings down with your index finger, or do you press 1 and 6 down with your index fingers? That's a great question, David, and a great video series for you to look at inside of UGS is bar chords. So when you're in the program, not here, but when you're in the program, in the upper left-hand corner, you're going to click the little magnifying glass, and you're going to search bar chords, B-A-R. I might have spelled it B-A-R-R-E, which is like Old English, and still, for some reason, works today. But bar chords. And you'll want to watch that, because I go over all that stuff specifically. But to answer your question, David, if I'm playing, say, like an E bar chord, I'm not really thinking, okay, maybe I should press more on the 1st or 6th string. In fact, if I think about that, it feels awkward to have to compensate for that. So I just lay my finger down. With that being said, fingers 2, 3, and 4 are playing strings 5, 4, and 3. And so those strings don't have to be pressed down as hard, right? But string number 6, 2, and 1 do need to be pressed down. So David, everybody has a problem with bar chords. There's nobody in the history of ever playing guitar that just started playing bar chords and was like, this feels great, this is so comfortable, and I can do this all day long. No, they all had to practice. So you're in good company there. If you were able to just take to it right away, I would say good job, or not good job, congratulations, because you're the only human that's ever been able to do that, because no one has. You definitely got to practice, and it has to do with strength and technique, more technique than anything else. I watched the guy arm wrestling the Mountain from Game of Thrones, which I know I got some Game of Thrones fans here and we all watched that finale last night. Ugh. That's my response. Ugh. Anyhow, so the Mountain, this guy is ginormous dude, sitting there arm wrestling this guy. And I've seen this with other people too. You'll see a scrawny guy, well, not scrawny, but not as big as the guy he's going against, and they're arm wrestling, and the scrawny guy will beat the big guy. And you're like, how can that even be? And there must have something to do with some technique. Just like, same thing with, magicians and that sort of thing. Tucking a card in your hand or whatever, doing some sort of sleight of hand thing is not a matter of muscle, it's a matter of technique and getting so good at a particular something in all the right places that it makes a big, big difference. And so when you're practicing these bar chords, just understand that so much of it has to do with technique. The only way to get that technique is through practice. That's all. The only way to do it. You can watch my videos. You can watch videos of people talking about how to play it. And that is very helpful because it'll make you cognizant of those things that you need to think about when it is that you are approaching the strings. Obviously, if you approach the strings like this, then that's bad technique. This is better. Playing with a hyperextended finger is better. Those are all things that I teach. So learning the technique is very, very important, though. You won't have to press down as hard, but in the beginning, you're going to have to press down. You're going to have to do something, Okay. Good. Oh, you're so welcome, Joe. Yeah, Drop D is pretty fun. Gary is saying, I just purchased a Line 6 Pod HD 300, which is great. I've had that one. Or I had the HD 500, which has a looper and a modeling built in. What's a good beginner song that I could layer in for acoustic guitar and singing along? Open microphone type gig. Gary, a good song would be With or Without You, because that song is just the same chord progression all the way through. In fact, Gary, what I would suggest is, because there's so many different songs out there and I don't know what you like, I would do like a Google search and I would search like one chord progression songs or some idea of that, as opposed to songs that have a chorus and a bridge and everything else. They can have those, but if they're changing the chord progression, then that's going to be a little bit difficult for you if you're using a looper pedal. Unless you really know how to use the looper pedal well, you can do it. But if you're just doing standard, like I just want to play this one chord progression and go for 3 minutes, then finding songs specifically that are structured like that, With or Without You by U2 is one of those. In fact, I have a video on YouTube. If you search, let me think. I forgot what it's called. If you search Your Guitar Sage Gadgets, I think you'll find it, because I think Gadgets is in the title somehow. It's a stupid video. I was just goofing off one day, and it's dumb video. But I show you how to loop, basically, in there, or I loop that song. That's what I do. I don't actually show you how to loop in that. I'm looping With or Without You. Okay. Friends, too, if I didn't tell you already, make sure you put a question mark and all caps, if you would. It'll help me to see your questions better. Cool. Okay. Probably a basic question. Just signed up. Total beginner. Done the 30 free lessons and wondering how's it's best to follow, 365 or UGS, Dell's asking. Dell, great question, and I have a video for that's on YouTube. If you search Your Guitar Sage 365 UGS, Your Guitar Sage 365 UGS, you'll find it, and I specifically talk about it. So that's the longer version of this. If you want to check that out after this lesson, that would be a great thing to do, okay? It will help you to understand what to do. With that being said, I can tell you in a nutshell what that says, but of course a nutshell doesn't include all the information. It's just a basic idea. And it's this. Think of UGS as me, your guitar teacher, available to you whenever you want, with questions, with show me how to do the cage system, show me how to solo, show me how to finger pick, etc., etc. 365, think about it as something for you to do, a task to do every day on the guitar that's going to take you out of your comfort zone and get you to play the guitar better than you would if you didn't do those things, okay? So it's basically like a workout every single day. You work out so that when you mow the lawn, you're not being worn out, or when you're walking with your family, you're not being worn out. So you think about 365 as like an exercise that you do, going to the gym type of thing, whereas the lessons are more like living life, okay? Gary just got an HD 300 for 149 delivered. Oh, wow, nice. Editing sounds, yeah, that's a great unit, and you stole that for $149. Yeah, that's great. Okay, Eric, when sliding down from a G bar chord to an F bar chord, E shape, with distortion on and using palm muting and left hand muting while strumming 16th notes, I have a harmonic ringing out. Any ideas what I'm doing wrong? Matthew, yeah, you're hitting the strings when you're not pressing any notes down. Okay, because if you were pressing notes down, then you would get a note out of the chord. Otherwise, you get a harmonic, right? Which are those notes that sound like this, right? By just dragging my finger along the string. You know, sounds really cool on the electric. And so that's what you're doing, is you're not pressing the strings down during that note, and that's why you're getting that harmonic ringing out. That being said, Crazy Train and a million other songs have great harmonics in them. Just, you know, oh gosh, there's so many of them. But, in fact, I was just playing... And this is probably not going to sound good on here, but hold on here. This is Van Halen, and I'm playing on a Strat without humbuckers, so it's going to sound like poop, but here we go. There's a certain part of the song where he goes up. But there's that part there, right? Those are harmonics at the 6th fret, and I think that sounds pretty cool. So, you know, I guess what I'm saying here, Matthew, is if you really absolutely just hate it, that's what you're doing wrong. But I would implore you to allow the guitar to be the guitar, and if it's making a sound like that, and if it's not totally just messing with your mind, allow it to be the guitar and allow that to be a cool sound. You know what I mean? Same thing with Crazy Train, right? Randy does that. He goes, what is that? But it sounds so cool. It's like my favorite part. So that sort of idea. Cool? Okay, major pentatonic pinky on the 6th fret, on the 6th string, 5th fret. A minor pentatonic, same shape, but starting with index finger on the 6th fret. I would imagine other starting points might voice other modes, but I haven't tried. Okay, Ted, is there a question there? Let me know what your question is. Once you learn a song, would it help to practice with the metronome to keep your timing on point? Della, yes, it will. It will help. You can also play with the song itself. That's more fun to do, and they were probably playing to a metronome when they put it down in the studio. So that's another way to do it. Playing to a metronome is just, it's good. It's a good thing to get you in timing, but it is just boring sometimes. That being said, the more you play with a metronome, the better you're going to be. So at least in regards to timing. It's going to make you faster and give you better timing. It'll make you faster because if your timing is more on point, then your speed automatically follows. Because you're not trying to make up for notes by being slow in one phrase. And this is something that people who practice with metronomes know what I'm talking about. So if you're practicing your scales with a metronome, it's more fluid. And where people run into problems is even if it's just a microsecond that they're late, they got to catch up with the beat. Now they're going even faster, and that's when they mess up a lot of times. So, okay, Dead Film Star is saying, if I were to buy a drum pedal, Beat Buddy, etc., where can I mix different levels or basically work out a song? What would you recommend? What alternatives can go onto my board to loop and play along? Okay, so here's the deal. Beat Buddies are cool, but when you're using a Beat Buddy, it's going to, if you're using it as a pedal in your like regular pedals, right, in your whole system, you're running it through an amp. So if you're running it through a Marshall amp, now your bass drum and your hi-hat and your snare are all running through this overdrive and your EQ and your reverb. So it's not going to probably give you the effect you're looking for. So if you're using a Beat Buddy, I would suggest using it through like a PA or something like that. That's the best. But if you were to buy a drum pedal, where can you mix the different beats? So typically the Beat Buddy in and of itself, you mix that and you pick the different drum kits, you pick the different beats, the tempo, the fills, all that stuff. Okay. That being said, there are other units other than that do things like play bass lines and the drums. So the Beat Buddy is really cool, but there's other stuff as well. That's great for like controlling the beat right there, adding fills and stuff like that. There are other things, other boxes that you can get that'll play bass lines and drums all at the same time. Just do some Google searching on that, because off the top of my head I can't think of a name of one, but I know there are some. It's not something I've looked into recently. Guest 4153, hey Eric, I bought a Line 6 modeling amp at a box store because the store rep was saying how awesome they are compared to tubed. But I've always been told that tubes is way better. You've been told right, typically. Any thoughts on that? But I have a caveat here. Any thoughts on that? And also, I did not buy the multi-effects pedal that goes with it. Should I get that? It will get me several tones, or should I buy single pedals for each tone? There's not a right answer to that. And really with the tubes, there's not a right answer to that. Historically, if you were to take all the professional guitarists and say, do you like tube or solid state better? I'd probably say that 95% of the time they're going to say I like tube better. If we're just talking about sheer tone, and I say professionals because obviously you got to go with a variable that's the same, and they know equipment. Amateurs don't know equipment, right? Amateurs are new to stuff, so they don't know. They might have opinions and strong opinions, but it doesn't mean they have educated opinions. So go with professionals. They're going to say they like tubes better because it has a warmer tone. If you take a 5-watt amp, a 5-watt tube amp, it will be louder than a 100-watt solid state amp. So they're louder. They have more of a dynamic range. So if you play your guitar quietly and then you play it super loud, the quietness and the loudness are much wider, much of a bigger span than, say, a solid state, which tends to smush things a bit. So they sound better, yeah. With that being said, everything that you're hearing right now is solid state. It's a Kemper Profiler amp, so it's a modeling amp as well, just like Line 6. I think they have better stuff than Line 6 because I've owned all the Line 6 stuff and I love it. It's really good stuff, but my Kemper, I'm just like, this is just a whole nother world for me. And I have got, 3 tube amps in here and a couple tube amps out here. And I use my Kemper all the time because it gets all the sounds that I would ever want immediately. It's amazing. I love it. Okay, so that's my thoughts there. You can make just about anything sound good if you know what you're doing, if you tweak the right buttons in the right place and stuff. And when I say right, it's like what's right for you. There's not a right place. Sometimes people will ask me, they'll say, what's the EQ on that amp? And I say, do you own the same amp that I do and running the same guitar with the same pedals and the same, cable and everything else? Because I'm trying to train them that I'll give you those settings, but you also have to compensate for the microphone that I'm using, and did I EQ it afterwards, and a million other things. So it's not quite as simple as that. So this is why you've got to get involved in your own playing and in your own shaping of your sound, especially when it comes to amps and guitars and stuff, because what's right for you is not right for the next guy or the next girl, okay? So, and should you buy a multi-effects pedal that goes with it? I think that would probably be good. You probably could get it for cheaper, and it will allow you to do a lot of things. And I would do that instead of getting the single pedals. The single pedals are expensive. Like I said, with what that modeling amp does, which it does everything that the Line 6 pedal does and more, you're getting easily $10,000 worth of effects built in there if you were to buy them separately. And the cool thing about your modeling amp is you can use multi effects. You can use many at a time, as opposed to that one pedal. You can only use one at a time. Okay. Yep. And Dead Film Star said, learn what your inspirations are doing. That's what I do. Test, trade, etc. 100%. I've gone through so much equipment over the years, it's not even funny. There is no perfect equipment. Don't even think that. If you do that, then you are going to be sadly mistaken, and you're going to end up selling your gear anyhow and getting new gear all the time, okay? So that's the truth. It's what's best for you. So find out what your inspirations are doing. So if you like the way that Stevie Ray Vaughan sounds, get online and say Stevie Ray Vaughan's guitar setup, amp setup, whatever. And then you're going to find loads of information coming back where people are talking about the strings and how he tuned his guitar and the style of guitar he had, the year, the cable he used, the pedals he used, the speakers he used, the amps and the tubes and everything else. And you'll be able to drill down. So if you're like, I want Stevie Ray Vaughan sound, that'd be a good place to start, is find out all the equipment he used and then try to do that without breaking your bank, right? And then you can move out from there. You can trade out from there or see, I don't really like that. I don't know how Stevie got that sound out of all this, But chances are it's going to get you on the right page. Daphne is saying, hey, Eric, before joining UGS, I felt like I needed to learn scales in order to make sense of anything guitar. Is there any truth to that? Is it beneficial to spend extra time learning scales? That's a great question, Daphne. And I mentioned this earlier in an earlier broadcast. Somebody said, do I have any regrets or, anything that I would do differently playing guitar now? And one of the things was, once I learned a scale, I should have spent all the hours that I spent going over that scale. Just doing it over and over and over again and trying to work on my speed. What I should have done is done more improvisation, because really at the end of the day, it's what you do with those notes is what's more important than you just being able to play the notes over and over and over again. And think about it. If you were to go to the gym and lift, to bench press 200 pounds, and the next day you go and you bench press 205, and the next day you do 210, and you keep upping it, you're going to get stronger. But if you went to the gym and you said, I'm going to take these 15s and I'm going to pump them up, and you do that, and the next day you come and you do the same thing, and the next day you do that, and you do that for 1,000,000 years, you're only going to get so strong. You're not going to get stronger because you're not challenging your muscles, right? Same thing if you have like they always talk about with I won't go down that road, but let's say you have let's say you have something burning something, okay? You have something and it melts at 1,000 degrees, right? Say you have a girder, okay, and it melts at 1,000 degrees, and you hold a candle underneath it. And if that candle is 999 degrees, if you hold that candle underneath it for 1,000,000 years, it's not going to get any hotter than 999 degrees. It doesn't matter how long that flame is on it. It doesn't get hotter The girder's not going to get hotter than the flame, okay? So in the same way, when you are playing scales and doing that sort of thing, you can literally be spending hours and hours on your instrument, and yes, you're getting better to some degree, but not at the speed and the extent that you could be getting. So this is why having a good regimented practice makes sense. And this definitely, it all starts with your why. Why is it that you're playing guitar? And I have a lesson for that inside the program, upper left-hand corner. Once you're in UGS, search why guitar, like WHY guitar. And you're going to find that video. And it's like, why do you want to play guitar? Because if you want to play guitar because you want to play in a blues band, then your skill set of what you need to learn to be an awesome blues player is going to be different than the rock player, different than the studio player, different than the live player, different than the campfire guitar player. And it's really important. So Daphne, if you want to be an accountant, you're going to study accountant things. You're not going to go to cinematography school. That would be goofy because you're learning stuff that, even though it may interest you, is not going to help you in your job. So in the same way, it's really good for us to take some inventory and say, why are we even playing guitar? Well, it's fun. Cool. Well, beyond that, I guarantee you that if you're just like, man, I like everything. Do you? Do you? Do you like black metal? Do you like death metal? Do you like fusion jazz? Do you like atonal music? If you answered no to any of those, then you probably don't like everything. So it's good to understand what it is that you like, what it is that you don't like, and that will get you on the page. And if you watch that series that I have on why do you want to play guitar and how to develop your practice, actually, if you search in your library, let's do this. So for instance, if I do this inside the system here, or actually go to your library. If you're in UGS, then you should have all this by just going to, did you see how I did that? I hit my library, go back to my library, your library. And then I'm gonna go right here, how to practice guitar. And this right here, Daphne is going to tell you all about that introduction on how to practice, and it's talking about all this stuff, like even scalar practice, what you're talking about. It's like how to change up the scales so it's not so boring, and so it makes it something useful that you might use, okay? Why do you want to play guitar? There's that video. And then how to practice, because as a songwriter, as a blues player, or playing out live, all that stuff's going to be different. So it's really important for you to understand why it is that you're playing guitar first, and then it's going to put you on the right page. It's going to save you a ton of time and energy doing that, okay? All right, Larry was practicing, so he was late. Good, Larry. Good for you, buddy. Okay, saw your video with the guest, talked about learning new songs. Can you review the topic points on how to do this in reference with me, a new guitar player rhythm, less than 1 year with UGS, trying to learn songs from a band that only plays by ear or vocal sheets? A lot of the music is original. Okay, Wildlife. Great question. I love that you're asking this, but this would be akin to saying, how do you become a jet pilot fighter? It's like, well, you get in a jet and you fight. That's the short version. The long version of that takes, I'm sure, like 10 years. Or how do you become a brain doctor? So not quite probably as lengthy as that, but you know, when we're talking about learning new songs and what have you, if you're in UGS and you're following things in order, you're doing everything that you can to learn all of this stuff. That's why I specifically set it up that way. So, you know, you need to learn some basic music theory. That's all the stuff that I teach in the beginner section. The more theory you know, the better. So all that information is helpful. I said this earlier, Wildlife, is that as a baby you hear Mozart and Chopin or any music that you're listening to the same that you do as an adult. But the way you're deciphering what you're hearing is what's different. If someone's speaking Mandarin to me and I don't know Mandarin, it's going to be the same Mandarin as if 40 years later I studied it and now I can speak it. It's the same things that I'm hearing, but I have a different interpretation now that I have the language to speak that way. That's where music theory comes in, because it helps you understand this puzzle that everybody has issues with. I don't understand this. Okay, it's because you don't know the theory part of it. And people say, well, I don't want to know the theory. Okay, well, that's like saying I want to know Mandarin, but I don't want to study Mandarin. you got to study Mandarin. You got to do it if you want to know how to speak like the Chinese do. Okay, so less than 1 year in UGS, and so you want to learn how to play by ear. Inside the UGS upper left-hand corner, search ear, and you're going to find all sorts of stuff about that. Learn the number system. Upper left-hand corner, search number system. Study that and the ear stuff, and that's going to help a ton. Okay. If you have specific questions about it, let me know. But learning the theory, learning to play by ear, learning the natural number system is going to help you to get a construct of music, and it's going to help your ear understand things. So when you hear them, you'll be able to go to the guitar and be better at it. And practicing all that stuff, okay? So you can watch a video and you can understand it conceptually, but unless you're applying it to your own playing, it's not going to mean that much of a difference. Make sense? I think so. It's like learning how to work out, watching somebody online and saying, oh, okay, that's the form and everything else, but you still got to go do it, right? Of course you do in that case, but like watching someone do it and going, yeah, I understand it, and then doing it yourself because now you're not watching, you're in it, is different, okay? Good. Okay, Larry's saying, if I want to experiment in DADGAD tuning, how would I approach building chords that work in that specific tuning, since I only know scales and standard and flat tuning, which is half step back right now. So Larry, the quickest way I would do it is to search online and say DADGAD chords. Google's your friend. Search DADGAD chords, DADGAD scales, and you're going to get a slew of everything that you could imagine for those. That's the best way to do it. Otherwise, you have to reconstruct everything in your brain as you're doing it. And you can do that. There's nothing wrong with that. I do stuff like that all the time. It's a really smart way, actually. It'll help you learn it more integrated. James is saying, I got some silk steel strings recently, but I have not opened the package yet. What is your opinion concerning these strings for an acoustic guitar? I have an old Tama Japanese and thought the lesser stress might help the guitar. Advice, please. Put them on to return unopened on some other type. James, you want to use those silk strings on a nylon string guitar. I'm pretty sure that's what you're talking about. Are the high strings clear? If you can answer that for me, let me know. Because if they're clear, then you have nylon string guitar. You have nylon strings, and those should go on a nylon string guitar, a classical guitar. You could put them on a regular acoustic guitar, but I would not advise that because the nut is not cut correctly for that. And the strings are so thick, they'll sit on top of the nut, and it'll be hard to play, and it'll be goofy, and it's not made for that. Steel strings on a classical guitar, which usually does not have a truss rod, will usually break the guitar very quickly. So if you don't like your guitar, put steel strings on a Spanish or nylon or acoustic classical guitar. Otherwise, leave the nylon strings for the classical guitars, the steel strings for acoustic guitars. Okay, I bought a Ditto pedal recommendation. It's a total game changer. Yes, it is, right? It totally is, James. Love that. Thank you so much. Okay, if you learn a song from tabs, are you safe from copyrights, or do you have to change something? Ramon, no one's going to mess with you if you learn a song from tabs. If you post that song on YouTube and it gets enough views, then they might monetize it, meaning any ads that show on it, they take your money. They do that to me all the time. But you kind of have to be where you're in the radar, where they're looking at you and watching you and stuff like that. But if you're not, chances are no one's going to see it, no one's going to care. The worst thing they're going to do is strike your video, which in 3 strikes they'll take down your YouTube channel. I've only had 1 strike with all the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of songs and being under a spotlight. I've only had it happen 1 time. So you're probably okay to do that. I don't think anybody's going to do anything. Okay. At what point does a beginner realistically call himself an intermediate and then a semi-pro or pro doing a small gig, semi-pro, etc.? Professional usually means that you're getting paid. That's my limited understanding of it. Semi-pro means you're kind of getting paid. I don't know what semi-pro is. Intermediate, I wouldn't worry about all that because everybody has a different opinion of that. So someone's always gonna disagree with you there. The reason that I have that inside the course is just, I could have said module 1, 2, and 3, or section 1, 2, and 3, but beginner, intermediate, and advanced made a little bit more sense, and I tried to keep that in there as logically as possible, but I wouldn't worry about that too much. But pro usually means you're being paid. Semi-pro, I don't think I've ever heard of that, but you call yourself whatever you want, Larry, and everybody else can suck it. I think you're fine with calling yourself a pro. If you're getting paid, you're a pro. Okay. Okay, guess 2948. Been strumming acoustic for forever, self-taught, but now want to learn electric, hence UGS. Goal is to play classic rock and blues. How should I approach learning scales? Should I learn major scales before starting with pentatonic? Should I work on pentatonic and blues scales at the same time, or master one before the other? Help. Okay, great question. Want to play classic rock and blues. So what I would suggest is this. In UGS, let's do this, okay? Let's go here. Let's look at this. What I would do is let's go back here. Let's go to here. And once you know your blues scale, honestly, I would start with minimalistic blues. You'll hear me talk about this a lot. Minimalistic. There we go. So minimalistic blues, and this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where I would go. I would go here, okay? And this is going to show you how to use the blues scale in real time, different patterns, all the rest. Oh, look, Esther loves this. I love this. See, look at all these. Check these things out, man. It's really good to scan these because you're going to find people going, yeah, dude, this is what I'm looking for, and it'll help you understand whether that series is for you or not. But in the system, you could learn pentatonic. I'd learn the blues scale. Just go straight to blues scale. It's only one extra note. You use it with everything anyhow, so you might as well just play the blues scale. If you need help with pentatonic, search pentatonic inside the program. Major scale is great for understanding music theory. Minor scales, don't worry about it. It's a derivative of the major scale, as I talk about, as you'll see later on. Learn the major scale, so you have some sort of reference as to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, and the number system. Learn the blues scale and the pentatonic scales, which the pentatonic scales is a derivative of the blues scale. There's only one extra note for the blues scale, but that will help you to understand music or understand how to the basic scales that you're going to be using. Major scale I use for theory all the time and analyzation, but for noodling and stuff, I use the blues a lot. And if you're a rock blues player, then you will as well. But start with the minimalistic blues because we take a real small section of the neck and we learn how to phrase. Listen, a child doesn't have to be given this giant dictionary to talk. They only need certain words to get by, like I got a pee-pee, I got a poo-poo, I got to eat, mommy, I'm hurting, etc., I'm sleepy. Boom, they're good for like 3 years, right? So you want to think along the same lines. It's better for you to be able to do a lot with a little than have a whole bunch and not know what to do with any of it, right? If I hand my kid a dictionary right now, he's going to look at me and say, I want to play with a toy, So you don't need more. You need to, with the stuff that you have, you need to really drill it home and get used to using that stuff, right? That's what we mean. That's what I mean there. Okay, so okay, good. Steve, I'm going to read this just because it seems like an interesting thing here. I've discovered the relationship of degrees of scales at intervals adjacent strings and find this way is easier to ID and build chords this way. Seems this is opening new windows for me. I can employ triad shapes on each of the 6, 5, 4, 3 strings for major, minor, dims, augs. When playing, how best to decide between bar chords, open triads on any of the strings. I'm trying to wrap my head around what and when to use with all available all over the neck. Okay, so this is exactly what I'm talking about here. Steve is overwhelmed because he's considering all the possibilities. If you're painting a picture of a park with children playing, you got to paint a sun, right? What color are you going to paint it? You could do purple, you could do green, you could do red, you could do pink. Oh my God, right? But you might want to choose yellow because that's the color of the sun. And now you got the grass. What color are you going to paint it? Paint it green. So, you start drawing the children. Maybe you're going to bring some other colors in here. But I guess what my point is this, Steve, is that you're not going to really think too much about it. You're just playing. So if you're playing Simple Man by Leonard Skinner, you're just playing simple chords, even though you could be playing all over the neck. There's no reason why you couldn't play all over the neck, right? But why would you do that? So, but you're asking why, you're asking like, when should I do that, all right? I'm trying to wrap my head around when to use with all available all over the neck. It's more the other way around. What you do is you just worry about the music. And then every now and then you're going to run into something where you're like, well, how do I do that? Or when would I do that? That's when you decide to go, okay, I need to study the cage system because I need to play chords up the neck. But if you don't need to, don't worry about it. That is the best thing that you can do, Steve. You're a left-brain thinker, would be my guess. You're very analytical and that sort of thing, like I can be sometimes. And that can be, for musicians, that can be troublesome sometimes because you're gonna say, oh, I can do all these different things. Well, you only need to do one thing at a time. What does your ear tell you? That's your heart, right? Let your heart guide you when it comes to music. All these other things, there's not a right answer. So, like, I guess that's what I'm saying is that you have all those different possibilities, and there are millions and millions and millions of different combinations on why you would choose one thing over another. But bottom line, if your ear's not pleased with it, none of those reasons matter. Okay. Music's much like love. You love. What is it? The heart loves what the heart loves, or something like that. And you don't really need a definition or a reason why. It just does what it does. You mentioned Game of Thrones, a completely different type of show. Have you ever watched the Amazon Prime comedy Patriot about a son who just wants to play guitar and sing at open mic, but his father is a top government official who forces his son to become a crazy James Bond, Jack Bauer character? No, I haven't seen that. That sounds amazing, though. I need to check it out. Yeah, all caps helps me to read the message. Is there software that will convert traditional music score to tab? Kinda, but it's not like you can take a sheet of music and hand it, it's like it's not a way to convert it like just by scanning per se. There may be something like that, but there's software out there that does both. But no, not really. I'd have to know more about what you're saying, convert from what? But no, typically not. Okay. Great input just now when you said learn to do more with what you have than learn. Yeah, indeed, James. And that you'll find that the best players know the simple stuff really, really, really well. And the players that don't know what to do but know all this stuff, they're just like, I just don't know what to do, because it's kind of the forest through the trees, that old bit. So learn to do a lot with a little. Okay. My wife introduced me to friends as a guitarist, but mentions I've only been playing for 7 months, but I practice my butt off every day, at least 30 hours per week. Whoa, that's awesome. I told that friend I'm studying guitar in theory. He has been a guitarist for 10 years and told me he only plays shapes and does not know notes of frets. Yep, just figure I am better than him. Yeah, so, and everybody's different, So this guy, he knows shapes, which is music theory, by the way, but he doesn't know the names of the notes. Right? So he knows what shapes work together. And then if we gave him the names of the notes, then all of a sudden it would make sense to him, but he's not playing anything different. He's playing the same stuff, but that extra information is going to allow him to do a lot more with the guitar than if he didn't know that stuff, right? So everybody, man, this is magical. It's like I always seem to be like going through all these questions, and then literally at the top of the hour, we get to the last question. So I love that. Any last questions? I have about another 2 minutes here before I got to go put the little guy to bed and eat something and get ready myself. But that's what I'm here for, friends. So if you have any last questions, let me have it right now. Of course, in the program, you guys know this, I'm sure. You can always leave your questions right underneath the video, right? And I always tend to these questions. In fact, right after this, I'll probably attend to some more questions. Eric, say something about how long it takes a good guitarist to practice an average song before attempting to play before an audience. Days, weeks, there's not really a amount, but obviously it depends on degree of difficulty, exactly, but how many of us attempt to evaluate how we are doing is by comparing to advanced guitarists and what it typically, there's a bug in here, typical for them. Thanks for your dedication and elevating us, Steve. Oh, you're so welcome, Steve. I understand the question and the longing to know this, Steve, but again, I would implore you to be in the moment. I know I say this a lot and it sounds like I get off on a tangent, but the more that I see life through my guitar, the more I just go, you know, I am where I'm at today. I could complain and say that I suck. But it's a continuum. Some people are going to think I'm a great player. Other people are going to think I'm a terrible player. We're on a continuum. And wherever we are is where we are. My 3-year-old is 3 years old today. July, he'll be 4. And just embrace that. Embrace where you are. And if you want to get better, then dedicate more time to it, like Larry's doing, 30 hours a week. That's the way you can change this time continuum thing, right? But what song you're playing, there's so many different variables. How dedicated you are to practice, how much you're practicing, all that stuff. So there's not really a way, there's no accurate answer for that, is what I should say, Steve. I'd be a liar if I gave you an answer. Does that make sense? Great question, though, and I totally get it. Okay. Okay, great. Last question here. Ron is saying, hey, Eric, thanks for all you do. Question on fingerpicking blues. I practice with both a pick and fingers and assume I should be following the typical Pima finger assignments when practicing blues scales, for example. Ron, you can do that, but you know, typically if you're playing scales, you know, if you're using a pick and your fingers, well, you could hybrid pick, right? Or you could, if you're doing like thumb first, you could go, you know, thumb first, thumb first, thumb first, thumb first type of thing. But I don't know if I'd practice your scales like that per se, you know? Yeah, I don't know if I would do that. But yes, as a rule, the thumb will take care of those low three strings. Fingers 1, 2, and 3 will take care of strings 3, 2, 1 respectively. Does that make sense? Okay, beautiful. Thank you for the great answer to my question, Eric. Definitely will apply that. Okay, you're so welcome, Daphne. That's what I'm here for. There's Merle. Hey, Merle. Beautiful. Okay. Thank you so much, Steve. Adios, my friend. All right, friends, I love you so much. You guys are my inner sanctum. This is the fireside chat. I love you guys. Thank you to Chris, who's literally been with me all day today, setting up these vids and what have you. He wants to go home too. So thank you so much, you guys. You rule, and you know what to do inside the program. Leave your questions if you have any, and we'll be putting up a new series soon with RJ Ronquillo on slide guitar. Yeah. All right. Good night. I'll see you tomorrow live, 11 a.m. on Facebook and YouTube. See you then.